Welcome, everybody. This is Town Hall 139. God, we've done 139 of these. That's amazing. Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. And super excited to this is always an interesting one, but I just saw enough things coming that I wanted to do this topic. We'll get there in a minute. Let's keep going. So I am your host, John Best. I am the CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group. And we do all kinds of stuff for credit unions. Lately, we've been doing a lot of kind of retrofitting processes with AI, one of which has been mergers. And that's gone real well. If you didn't see the press release on that, maybe Madison or somebody can toss it in or Amber can toss it in the chat. But, we've had some really good luck, finding use for AI that isn't necessarily, sending member data or, looking for opportunities where it's not going to violate any of sort of the doctrines that we have about it. But at the same time, it gives us a lot of experience and provides a lot of value. So super excited about that. I don't think Mike is with us today. Is he here? I'm not seeing him. But oftentimes, Mr. Mike is here. And when I first started this years ago, during the pandemic, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I decided just to go out on a limb, and we sent out to our mailing list a note, and it really wasn't that big at that time, that said, hey, we're going to hold a town hall so that everybody can sort of talk about what's going on with the pandemic, and just made it a very interactive forum where Jonathan was a big player in that where we talk about what we're seeing and what people are doing to mitigate things. And it's just continued into this. And so, and when I did it, I knew that I needed professional help, not just for this, but for lots of other things. And so I brought in Mike. And Mike is a fantastic, fantastic credit union activist. He is someone who has definitely evangelized and helped build our industry. So when he's around, he's awesome. If you haven't checked out See Broadcast, you should. Let's keep going. Like to talk about our sponsors here. America's Credit Union just finished a really great strategy and growth conference with them, where we did a very fun, pardon the interruption. I think it's going to be out on the web soon, so we'll make sure everybody gets a link to that. But if you haven't checked out americascreditunions.org, they have one of the better consortiums for the credit union space, particularly if you're looking for community around the job that you do in the credit union, whether it be loans, whether it be risk, whether it be HR, those sorts of things. They have it in spades, and we're thankful for what they provide, because the superpower of the credit union industry is collaboration, and they really do enable that. Now, today's episode is all about fraud, and one of my favorite people is here. Were your ears burning, Malin? Because I was just talking about you with another group. How you doing today?
Doing good, my friend. Good to be back. It's been a while. Sorry, I've been traveling a little too much, but this one lined up really well.
Well, congratulations on yet another amazing Finovate performance, and you guys are on fire. We've had such good discussions, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Illuma, if you don't mind, and I'll probably piggyback on because you're too modest, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, overall, we're the only QSO based in the US focused on the problem of voice security. Traditionally, it's been, purely voice authentication, and now with the advent of AI, we're viewing it as a broader aspect of voice security, which is layering in voice authentication, synthetic detection, multi-factor, all in one simple to use approach that can keep our clients protected against today's and yesterday's threats, but also the ones that we're walking into in the future.
Yeah, and there's appears to be plenty. As a matter of fact, we'll go over some of that. Been so much in the news. If you don't have something like this, I really encourage you to get it, because things are not going to get any easier anytime soon. Also, and I don't know if I have a slide for this, Madison, but we have our official other co-host, Glenn Sarvati, with us. But I know Glenn is kind of popping in and out on this one, but he's going to take a few sections of this.
I'm here.
and our what we call our unofficial host at large, Lou. So, who is a great, and for whatever reason, we can name Randy in that space as well. But so we're super excited to have everyone, and let's move on to the next slide there. We've got some exciting stuff. I have some announcements coming. I'm really excited about. I can't talk about it yet, but I'm going to say this. For those of you that remember AXFI and liked it, thought it was good, keep that in your head, and maybe keep your calendars open for the first or second quarter of next year. I can't 100%. It's not going to be the same thing, but we got some ideas, and so there's stuff rolling around. So we'll come back to you on that. You may have just heard about the Innovation Club. One of the best things I can do to talk about the Innovation Club is just to ask one of the members, and we happen to have Jonathan here and also Randy. But I'll put Randy on the spot. Randy, you've attended, you've been around it. Want to talk about it a little bit so I don't feel like I'm too salesy?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like you talked about with America's credit unions. I mean, it's just great to have that collaboration and the networking and really see what everybody is doing. I think a lot of the early work in credit unions around AI was done as part of councils and as part of Innovation Club. So really good group of people to be around.
Yeah. And the best part is we just have great people. It doesn't matter where you come from, folks like Randy or Jonathan that are passionate and provide just a lot to it. We always have Glenn there, and Glenn brings even more expertise from different directions. It's just a 1-2 punch of a club that we feel like helps you to see around the curve and to prepare for what's coming, because that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to sell you on shiny things. We're just trying to understand how new technology breakthroughs are going to impact our credit unions and what we need to maybe do today or maybe in the near future to prepare for them, whether they happen or not, or what comes about from it. So let's move on. All right, it's time for Big Go. And I believe, Glenn, you were going to take this one?
Sure, we got breaking news. If you haven't seen already, the Fed Open Market Committee made their announcement just an hour ago at 2 o'clock Eastern. Rates have officially been cut by 25 basis points, which surprised, I think, officially nobody. I think that was pretty well kind of telegraphed in advance. What probably wasn't quite as telegraphed is and I haven't seen the specific wording, but they've clearly set the table for further cuts for the remainder of the year. I think I saw 2 most likely, and I guess that just becomes a matter of, that's not a commitment, but that's the direction that they're basically, foreshadowing that they're going to be going. So, one of our items was Fed cuts rates by 25 basis points. There's another one that says Fed cuts rates by 50. So there's a pretty good chance that around this time next month, we'll probably have another bingo chip on the board from that one. And then a little bit earlier, the Genius Act, which I'm trying to recall, we may have just missed checking this one off last time. You know what it was? Last time we were actually live at the Strategic Growth Conference, so we didn't go through the bingo card. But the Genius Act is officially signed into law, which is interesting because what it really does is just start an additional process that takes about 18 months to really lay the true framework. But this kind of sets the rules for the framework. But I don't think there's any question that stable coins have moved to a totally new trajectory in terms of how quickly they're evolving at this point. So those are the 2. There's a couple more that
there
are
was some
probably
big announcements.
Now we'll cross over. Sorry, go ahead.
There were some big announcements at Scimitar at the conference there and Fiserv. We heard basically everybody's sort of starting to pick their partners, their dance partners. I think Scimitar said Circle, and Fiserv said Coinbase. No, it was Citi, and Chase said Coinbase. I know we're going to do more detail on that, but you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a nonstop parade of different announcements going on in that space. I know Circle, having gone public, I think is particularly motivated to make sure that they show, and having their stock gone up by a factor of 5 pretty much overnight once they went public. I think now they're, to some extent under pressure to justify that price, which probably surprised even them. And the best way to do that is to help people understand the business model of how this, is not just the business you see today, but where it's going. So I think that's the one I'm the most interested in following. I mean, the other big benefit is they're now a public company. So come the end of the quarter, we're going to get a nice quarterly formal report and earnings release, earnings calls. We'll get a lot more visibility into exactly what it is they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Glenn, just for everybody's knowledge here, you used to work at the Fed.
Long time ago. I don't think anybody even had the concept of stablecoins back then. But yeah, I was at the Chicago Fed back in the 1980s in a different financial crisis than the last two or three that we've talked about. But I'm good friends with a whole bunch of folks at the Atlanta Fed. I spoke there last month
Yeah, so
around the Georgia limited banking charter for that companies like Stripe have actually applied for, and that Fiserv now has a license in.
So, what's your take on the pressure on the Fed at the moment? Just curious, and what do you think is happening regarding internally that? Just a quick tangent. Just give us your.
It's interesting. I'd like to think, and today's, so far, we'll see what happens now in the social media world and whatnot. I feel like they've done a pretty good job of insulating themselves because the action they took today feels very much data driven. I mean, whether the pressure campaign has had any real effect is hard to say. We did not wind up pushing Lisa Cook out of her role at this point. There was a new Fed, and somebody just filling a temporary post at this point from President Trump's Bureau of Economic Advisors, who's now on the board. But I don't know if they're going to release that immediately. They probably will, but I have not seen what the vote was in terms of the raising the rate. And if anybody tried to contest and say, oh, we should just go ahead and do 50 basis points right now, that'll be interesting to see what the level of discord is within the group. But I've got to believe it was a pretty strong consensus at this point.
Yeah, I think that was the info I was looking for. Is did you feel like this was the pressure or data driven? And because it just happened, I haven't had a chance to even review it. It sounds like you believe it's data driven.
Well, just based on what's happened over the course of the last month, particularly the reset on the jobs numbers. I mean, it's like if you needed one more data point to make it just a total fait accompli, to me, that was the one.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Glenn. Appreciate you giving these updates. Let's move on to the next slide. Oh, there you go. There's the predictions.
Yeah, we just
rates at 25.
Skip along, but I believe we've had 15 that have now been checked off, and I can see a couple that are probably going to be checked off very, very briefly. I believe based on a real quick poll, I'm just scanning the cards. Nobody's one box away yet. I think there's a few people who have 3 boxes in a row. So we'll see when it starts getting a little bit more suspenseful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting because some good prizes from us and from America's Credit Union. So, plus it's just fun to play. We should do this. We should build Big Go for other things, Glenn. Like we could do like one for what was that site we were looking at, Manifest, where you can bet on predictions? You could do that in Robinhood now too. Will Bitcoin go over 150,000? It's kind of that same vein. It's pretty interesting.
That was one of the ones we were on a real watch to see, because one of the other items was Bitcoin hits 125, and it got to like 123,700 and then kind of reversed. So we didn't quite make it.
Yeah, well, there's still time, Glenn. As
There's
you know,
plenty
my
of time.
predictions still stand. My podcast. Speaking of that, Glenn and I host a podcast. Often it's just Glenn. Check it out, the Big Cast. It's awesome. Maybe somebody can post a link in there if you ever want to. Glenn talks about all these things and more. And he also just recently wrapped up all his visits to Finovate. And those episodes are either out or forthcoming, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got the one that just dropped yesterday. It's got interviews with 2 of the Best of Show winners from New York City. And we got the next one's lined up already with 3 more folks that I spoke to out there.
Yep. So you want to check it out. All right. I already introduced him, but I asked him on today because I got some ideas for you, Mend, and I want to get your feedback. So get ready.
No pressure.
No pressure. All right. All right. So we'll keep going here. Okay. So fun with fraud. I stole this from Big Bang Theory, Fun with Flags.
I thought that might have been the reference.
I rewatched the entire thing at the end and got all the way to the end, and I thought, yeah, Glenn and I are kind of like the Fun with Flags, Fun with Fraud host. So we said early on, we said this last year, that AI would impact fraud in a very big way. But and we knew some things that were just obvious. So like, for example, you weren't going to be able to identify fraud anymore as easily by misspellings or things like that, because the AI would solve that for them. The language gaps go away. We identified that, there was some opportunity at scale with fraud, that they would probably be able to do things faster, just like everybody else can do things faster. And with AI, it expedites things. But here are some interesting things that came out of it that I don't want to say didn't see coming, but they're different, to say the very least. So let's move on here. So next slide here. Okay. So this one I thought was really interesting. The fake military IDs and bogus resumes. So before I go on, because I know of at least one credit union that hired somebody that they thought was, a person that turned out to be not North Korea, but, India or something like that, where it was a bunch of people. I wanted to see in the chat if anybody else has had that experience. Have you come across that? I was surprised that I knew a credit union that had done that. So yeah, I'd be curious if you want to put it in the chat that anybody's actually, discovered, or even if you didn't hire them, but you could tell. So if anybody has any direct connection to that, I'd be interested. But the other thing that I thought was curious about this, and I'm going to flip and play a quick video about it here in a minute. So let me do that first so you guys can get context so you understand. So I'm going to go ahead and take up the share here, share my desktop, have it put up here. It's a pretty quick one. It's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but I probably should have clicked the whole share sound so that nobody else could tell me that. Optimize, thanks again. All right, should be able to see my screen. Tell me if you can.
We got it.
All right, here we go.
We have new details tonight. Our coverage continues on an East Tennessee cyber scheme with ties to North Korea. The FBI raided a Jefferson City home and a Carson Newman dorm. There, law enforcement found a collection of laptops. It formed part of a system called a laptop farm. Reporter Maria Guzman spoke to a cybersecurity expert on what a laptop farm is and how it benefited North Korea weapons programs.
Hacking is done by just regular computers.
It only took a collection of computers to run $1 million internet scheme from East Tennessee.
Folks that are doing this are probably pretty smart.
According to court documents, a man from Ukraine worked with people in the U.S. to set up a system called laptop farms. A system that cybersecurity experts say is not hard to set up.
Think about it at your house. If you went to KUB and bought, a gig of internet really cheap, and then someone gave you 15 laptops to set up on your wireless network, that wouldn't be that difficult, The
laptop farms were set up in a Jefferson City home in a Carson Newman dorm room. The farms were located in East Tennessee, San Diego, and Virginia Beach.
5, it could be 500, it could be 50.
They were then used to advertise remote jobs through a website called Upwork Sell. Their IT workers from North Korea pose as U.S. citizens using stolen identities. They will then work in remote positions for U.S. companies.
Trying to use social security numbers, credit cards, things like that for financial gain for an organization.
Tech experts say the top countries after our information are China, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, and North Korea. In this case, the online users were from North Korea and had ties to the North Korean government. They also were involved in the country's missile program.
As a nation state like North Korea or China or Russia will hire these companies, these gangs, these organized crime units who will do the work on the behalf of the nation state.
According to the IRS, more than 300 companies were affected, and it cost them millions of dollars.
Reporter Maria Guzman joins us now. And Maria, we know the people behind the scheme are facing decades behind bars now.
Yes, at least 5 people are facing charges. 1 is a U.S. citizen, and the 4 others are foreign nationals. If convicted, they can face from 20 to 97 years in prison. Katie.
Maria, thank you.
So what I thought was interesting, go ahead and bring the video back up. So what they're doing, and Malin, this is
Kentucky's recognized for unanimous consent.
Mr. Chairman. Stop him here. Malin, this is where I thought I saw opportunity for you. So one way to easily tell, and we're going to come back to this other video. Can you go to the next screen? I messed up and put my screenshots in the wrong order. So the next one, yeah, that's the one. Next one after that. Okay, so that's her laptop farm, by the way. Her name was Christina Chapman. And she tried to say she didn't know what was going on, but she did. And you could see she has all little stickies with the passwords on them. And basically, it's not special. They were just remoting into them, just like we use VPNs and remote into our servers. But the one thing I discovered from one of the people who actually suffered from this, who they got to the point of hiring them and had to get rid of them, they found out pretty quickly, was they're using AI during the interview to enhance their English, Malin. So now I'm thinking, well, maybe not only do I need Illuma Labs listing in on my call center, but if I do any remote communication of any sort, both with members and possibly, potential employees, it feels like, and it was interesting because I heard an ad for this today, Melinda, I wanted to touch on, but it feels like that something that can deduce an audio fake, a fake voice, would be very valuable. And it's something I think that I know you talked about. I know you and I talked about it years ago because I brought it to your attention. But I wanted to get your spot on that. But before we say it, and maybe someone can look this up. I heard for the first time today it was on a podcast, and it was a advertisement for McAfee on something that supposedly would instantly tell you what's a deep fake or not. So that I'm not so sure about. I'm curious on how it's done, but I'm going to take it from there, Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, this particular use case, I've heard of this challenge. I don't know anyone personally who's been attacked or incorrectly hired someone who's from an international location while posing to be a U.S. citizen. What I will say though is the internal employee authentication use case is bubbling up, quite significantly in terms of interest that we're seeing, particularly for things like internal IT password resets. So if you think about it, right, I mean, our obvious use case is, credit unions, financial institutions, where protecting member accounts from being taken over. But when you think about the scale there, right, for an attacker, they get access to whatever may be an average deposit size. Maybe they can, borrow from a HELOC, but it's still limited, as opposed to, pretending to be an employee, getting into the system, resetting a password, getting privileged access, and launching a ransomware attack. And, MGM Grand or MGM Resorts was was impacted. Clorox was impacted. These are companies which you wouldn't think are as like banks, but their losses were in the hundreds of millions. And so, these employee impersonation attacks have been growing, and there's been more of an attention on solving this problem just based on the number of inquiries we're getting for our solution. And I do imagine that, this would continue growing broader and broader. The other use case we hear about is, there've been like CEO and CFO impersonation scams that have been out there for a while. I think that's been, one use case where deepfakes have been used quite significantly, because the investment required to get there and do like a multi-month attack does pay off when you can move 7-8 figures, quite convincingly. So, I think all these use cases become more and more prevalent as time goes on, because, when you think about bigger picture, it's not just voice. It's really, with the advent of Gen AI and the advancements today, it's really a question mark on all digital communications, right? Whether it's voice, video, chat, any of those. And so there is huge opportunity and a huge need for investment and innovation in deepfake detection with as little data as you can find, and make those decisions as quickly as possible with the highest level of accuracy.
Yeah, I think I know one that I shared with you, and I'll share it again for everybody's benefit. So we had a credit union that received a call the comptroller or the person in charge of like moving money around received a call from what appeared to be the CEO, and they were telling the comptroller, "Hey, there's a great opportunity event, for investing in this thing. I want to push, I think it was $500,000 towards it." And the person didn't buy it because I think we're still early on in this, but she said it was very convincing. And then my answer to that was a simple answer, get together and come up with a passcode or something for amongst senior staff. But I think that's going to grow. And Melinda, I was going to say, I think that voice printing the actual employees so that if an employee is calling. So we do it for the members. Why wouldn't we do it for all the staff so that for sure you're talking to that member of staff? I think that's a real important aspect of it. Sorry, but I think that's where we're headed with it. The other thing I wanted to point out is this picture here. Sorry, it's new house. I that's why I have my background blurred, because I haven't had a chance to set it up yet. So I will do the review soon. I just moved. Hang on. So one thing I wanted to point out that I think is important for everyone to understand is the North Koreans aren't sending them these laptops. Do you know where these laptops come from? What happens is you get hired and you're a remote worker and the company sends you a laptop. And what they do is they have it sent to her. And then she sets it up and, they pretend that they're, living there and working from this. So I just that's why all these little sheets are on there, because, presumably they're all, marked for whichever business, because occasionally they're going to have to call her to reset them or whatever. And she needs to know what's what. So
can I make sure I understand what you just said? So each one of the laptops we're looking at on that picture theoretically belongs to one of these fake employees.
Well, yes, but they also were shipped from the business, not from the North Koreans. That's why you see all these tokens hanging everywhere. You see the tokens on the right-hand side? They're hanging from the top of that because most U.S. companies anymore have a badge or a token or something. So they'll get you your badge, and then you use that to get into your laptop. And that's why they're hanging all everywhere, because they need to log in every morning. This person has to physically, she would have had to go and log all these in so that all these pretend workers could work. And by the way, they were probably stealing stuff, but they were really trying hard not to get caught, because what they really wanted was the paycheck. You think about it, you got this group of like 10, 12 people that have 30 jobs, in big corporations making pretty good money because they're really good at developing. I mean, they have a surplus of technical talent. They're a great hacking group. They're terrible. Well, they're great and terrible, I guess I'll put it. But so, yeah, I just want to make sure everybody understood what you're looking at there. It's not like the North Koreans sent her 50 laptops and said, set them up. This is, I interviewed for a job. I'm not a real person. I have this lady who works for me. I get the job. I tell her, hey, there's going to be a laptop arriving, and it gets shipped to her. I need you to set it up. And then once they remote to it, they add software in to pipe in the cameras as though they're sitting there in front of it. Crazy, huh?
And presumably they got the VPN set so it looks like they're in whatever city they claim they were in the interview.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be honest with you, I just moved into this house, and Frontier, I called them, I go, okay. And I gave my standard line. Like I said, they said, all right, how much internet do you want? I said, what's the most you got? Because that's what I always say, because I just know myself. So they gave me 7 gig for $100 a month. So wow. Yeah, and I tested it, and like the speed tests don't go past that. So I had to build my own tester, because you know me, I'm not going to let him get away with that. Johnson's smiling because he would do the same thing. It took 4 PCs, by the way, Jonathan, to get it to happen, and the gigabit router. But I did it to prove it to myself. And sure enough, I have not quite 7 gig. I have like 6.9 or 6.8 or something. But but that's what you would need to run this. And for $100 a month, and they're probably sending her money. She's got a job as far as she knows. Now, I would encourage you to look into this, but this is not where it starts. Jonathan, can you mind saying what you put into the chat?
Yeah, I mean, this clearly presents some privacy issues for U.S. citizens, and I don't know how far it would go, but it makes me wonder, with these kind of threats out there, could ISPs start being pressured to try and identify suspicious traffic patterns for excessive numbers of VPN connections originating from what is a residential address or some, just doesn't look quite right. I mean, and to your point, John, your 7 gig Ethernet or internet connection, for a couple $100 now, you can buy like a router from Ubiquiti that has a 10 gig WAN port that can do that now. So, it's not out of the question that, people might actually be using that much. I just wonder, you think about machine learning algorithms, I wonder if ISPs will start to look for patterns of this type of behavior where they might be able to go, something's just not right here.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, there's more to be done for correlation. Like, for example, these, clearly, like I posted a picture of this house because I just moved from Tennessee. I know where this is. I know there's like rows of these types of houses. It's very common in Tennessee. And you look at it and then you look at this and you go, when you're driving by, you're not thinking there's a giant North Korean, laptop farm. I would think it more looks probably like wherever Melinda is right now. Not that he's running a North Korean hacking farm, but he has a way cooler setup. So, but this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on. So let me move on to the next slide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play, and this one's about 10 minutes, but I want you to, I think it's worth watching for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share this. I'm going to share my screen and bring it up. And this is how the hackers are basically multiplying their numbers. And this was actually Anthropic. So for those of you that don't know, there's basically 3 or 4 really big AI companies right now. And Meta is one of them, formerly Facebook. Anthropic, which is, I'll show you my screen. This is Anthropic. And what's happening is AIs are becoming more use case specific, and Anthropic's real claim to fame is coding. It's really good at coding. They know that, and they've been pointing in that direction. So people use this for code. The other one is obviously ChatGPT, and then X is another one, which is Elon's. Anyways, so Anthropic is becoming incredibly good at coding, probably at a rate that no one expected. So this lady is going to talk about how they're using this to create AI malware, and there's about a 10-minute introduction. I'll post these links, or Madison will, so you can watch the full thing. It's fascinating, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. Let's make sure that I shared it for sound again, because I always forget that. There we go. So I'm going to run this, and Jonathan, you can see my screen? Or anybody, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Got it.
Because of the way vibe coding works, it's very AI agent based. So you have all these agents working together. A lot of people are trying to put security controls on this. Like if you ask like vibe coding IDEs and go, make me ransomware, it's going to say no. But if you say to it, hey, I would love an application that helps me encrypt my files. Could you make me an application that encrypts a file for me? The bot will go, yeah, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. I'll write that code for you. And you say, hey, I want to apply this to every file on my hard drive. Can you write and then you've essentially got ransomware. Like, you may not have called it ransomware when you gave it to the bot, but what you've produced is fundamentally still ransomware. And existing security controls just don't work.
What's happening, guys? Today on the pod, we have Dr. Katie Paxton Fear. She's a cybersecurity researcher and lecturer who studies the intersection between AI and hacking. Across our conversation, we talk about AI hackbots, vibe coding malware, Google Translate's bizarre religious doomsday prophecies, and so much more fascinating, mind-blowing stuff. Let's get into it. Katie, thank you so much for joining. Would you mind introducing yourself and talking about what you do?
Pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Katie Paxton Fear. I have my fingers in lots of different pies. I am an educational YouTuber. I make videos about hacking. My day job is that I'm a hacker at a company. I hack companies, tell them how I did it. That way they can prevent it before like an actual malicious actor comes along and exploits a vulnerability. I'm also a lecturer at a university where I teach, shockingly enough, ethical hacking to students. But I do a lot of talks and I, again, go around the world teaching people about security. My specialism is definitely API security. It's where I got my start. I started out as a developer and I was making APIs. So when I first started getting into cybersecurity and started getting into hacking, I kind of hack what I know. And that's kind of where it's led me into being kind of like an API specific hacker. Though I would be the first to say there is nothing special about what I do. Anyone can do it. You just need to watch, of course, my YouTube videos on how to do it. Certainly not anybody else. No. It's a skill and you can learn it, right? And I thoroughly enjoy teaching it.
So with the help of AI, cybercrime is going through this really interesting evolution right now, not only in terms of the scale of attacks, but the variety of the different types of attacks. And one of those is something that you're studying, the AI hackbot. Would you mind taking a minute to explain what an AI hackbot is and how that differs from a traditional scanner?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing to kind of say really is nobody should be surprised that attackers are using AI. Like think about your typical corporation, right? Like everyone is using AI. Everyone is looking at ways they can make their job and their life easier with AI. And in a world where the attackers are corporatized, right? Like ransomware gangs have HR departments. They have people who work out the exact compensation plan that a malware developer should be on. They get bonuses for finding new, it is very, very corporatized. So no one should really be surprised that in the same way, we're using AI to make our jobs and lives easier, attackers are kind of doing the same. And AI as a technology, it's not something where it's really easy to put guardrails on. And if you look at, jailbreaking, for example, every single day there's a new jailbreaking prompt that you can give to ChatGPT to get around it saying, sorry, I can't help with that. But an AI hackbot is essentially an autonomous agent that can hack could be an application, could be a website, could be infrastructure. And essentially the way it works is that these attackers, they will get a little swarm of these hackbots and put them against a target, and they'll try a bunch of different approaches to hacking that. It's very much like kind of like the way people are talking about agentic AI being such a game changer. Agentic AI for hacking has kind of become a game changer, but for the wrong people. We're seeing it in a bunch of different ways, right? There are some developers where we're seeing AI generated code in malware. So we know that developers who are writing this malware are actually using AI to create it. We've seen AI being used for things like deepfakes, or even just for writing things like scam emails, right? They're using it to really up-level their campaign. And honestly, hackbots are really just the next iteration in that, right? A hackbot is simply an AI agent that can hack something, however it works. While traditional scanners kind of use a lot of different approaches, it's very hey, here's this big list of bad input. And here is, what success looks like if it works and actually manages to cause some kind of security outcome. And that's kind of all scanners are doing. Hackbots are way more like autonomous agents, though. They are way more like decision making. They're scaling up attacks. They're calling hacking tools the same way, an AI agent might call your credit card company to book a flight on your behalf. They're using it to go, oh, I can see this is a website. I'm going to launch my website hack bot and it's going to try these vulnerabilities. Or it's going to learn from a massive list of all these vulnerabilities, right? So really the difference between your typical scanner and what we're now seeing with hackbots is these attacks are becoming very quickly very personalized. They are very, very targeted towards specific companies, specific technologies that they use. And two, they're kind of autonomous. They don't really need a human in the loop so much. Like, they might have a human as an overseer, but it's not the same as a human having to look at that output, right? Obviously, there's lots of kind of good uses for this. Like, of course, as much as the bad guys can use it, the good guys can use it too, just like a regular scanner. But really, the kind of thing that worries a lot of researchers nowadays is very much that scale aspect. You know, attacks can happen on scales where we haven't even seen it before.
And would you break down step by step how an AI hackbot works?
The answer is it depends, which is always the fun answer to give in cybersecurity. We love an it depends answer. But essentially what will happen is you have some kind of way of coordinating these. Best thing to think about is really like your ChatGPT interface, right? So you can imagine you're communicating with a chatbot like ChatGPT that is malicious. So when you ask it to do something, maybe you send it a URL. And you go, hack this company, or tell me about the security vulnerabilities in this company, or what does this company's attack surface look like? The first kind of layer to that is the overseer is going to look at that, and they're going to go, okay, so to look for what attack surface they have, I need to launch my attack surface bots, and those attack surface are going to be separate AI agents which know how to use kind of hacking tools potentially, and kind of format that output for the main bot. So you can kind of, I guess you can kind of imagine like almost you are a customer, you go to a company and you say, do this for me. And the company goes, okay, so to do that part of the project, I'm going to need this person. To do that part, I'm going to need them, and I need it in this format. Same kind of idea. Quite often, these like initial like overseer hackbots are going to have their like little sub agents. These sub agents are going to run known security tools. They're going to pass that output and put it in a way that then makes sense for like a later hackbot. So you can think of like a vulnerability hackbot that sits again next to that. It takes the result from that attack surface, so it knows, hey, here are all the websites associated with this company. Go find vulnerabilities. That's then going to like actually start to identify which one of those might be vulnerable. That might then lead to another bot being launched, like an exploitation, like, oh yeah, we found that this website is vulnerable, so how do we actually exploit that vulnerability? Again, you're getting another bot to go in and do that. For you as the attacker, you don't see any of this. What you see is like a loading bar. And then when the loading bar is complete, it's like, here is the vulnerability, and here is the exploit, and here's what you should do. Fundamentally, they do kind of still need the human to kind of go in later, because even for like a malicious attacker, you know, they're trying to understand like the company's infrastructure, and they're kind of trying to get money out of the company. So fundamentally, it's up to them to like launch the ransomware and kind of.
So the interesting thing about this is the way she describes it is exactly what I expected to happen, which is you've got a hack bot, and the hack bot itself is you don't have to code it. You just tell it, you know, hey, this is what I want to do. And, you know, turn it loose. And the tools and things that it give it are the same tools they have. And I think she hit the nail on the head when she said scale. Scale is the number one issue that worries me about this. Because before, to find this stuff, there was, because so you have much more time between the casing of your stuff and the actual hack to find them. In other words, they do a low and slow scan. You see them, you go, hey, get out of here. You do something, and you see, oh, this is what they were looking for. Let me patch that. Because there was some time in between them looking for it and coming back and trying to deal with it. But now what Dr. Fear, which is a great name for somebody who is a cyber coding expert, which her stuff's really good if you haven't seen it, is, you know, it automatically, as soon as it finds it, tries to test the vulnerability and actually perform it. And let me explain. So imagine you had something on your website, a little some box or something that allowed people to do a search on the website. It's usually a widget or a tool, and you've seen them, a search button, whatever. Your chat is something that people want to talk about. And so, you know, the chat bot, the chat bot may have a vulnerability, and they know they're actually pulling down the JavaScript. So if you go to any website and you pull it up, and we'll just we'll pick one. So I'll share my desktop, and I'll just look up Illuma Labs. So so in the Illuma Labs site, if I go down and I'll just find something here to look at, I'll inspect this link. So behind this link is a whole lot of code. In this case, it's just a link to Facebook. It's not a big deal, but you can see that there's other code in here where, Illuma's using something called Nitro Pack Static, which is clearly some sort of tool that makes this website look good. It's all it is. And so when I hover over things, I can see more about what's what in the link. Well, what they're looking for is, now I go out and I look at this. So here's a hscripts.com. So this is using a JavaScript for WordPress. This is running WordPress 11.3.21. And you can see this takes me some time. And then I would have to go in and say, okay, are there any vulnerabilities for 11.3.21, which would be as simple as going, hello, I'm running a WordPress server, and it is running 11.3.21. I wanted to see if there are any vulnerabilities in that. Turn it loose and allow it to do its thing. These are just some MCP servers I'm not using at the moment. So it's going out and check it. Flow, okay, so it's got a little bit different. So I can even go a step further. This thing could just actually just go in and grab this entire link and say, now we'll see if it's smart enough, but whoops. Let me grab this link here. Copy element. So, okay, I'll say specifically, I'm specifically worried about this. I want to make sure it's safe. All right, so now it's going to go out and look at that. HubSpot. There you go. Good job, Lynn. That's powerful stuff. It's so now it's going to go out. But you see that this is, normally this would all had to have been done by hand. And now imagine that this thing had tools and it had the capability to do things. So it's saying, good news, it appears to be relatively safe, but there's important details. There's a cross-scripting version, but it was fixed in 11.34. So, but what would happen is the software the bad guys have would actually try to use this to get in. And if it did, it would try to do it quietly so you didn't notice, but then it would report back and say, this is how I got in. And so that's what we're seeing here. That's what we're talking about. So Malin, I know you've got to be seeing all this. I wanted to give you some time to talk about this. How do you see all this playing out, man?
First thing I'm doing is checking to see that our website is still running after what you did, and it's there. So thank you.
You did see I didn't do any actual thing. It's just
I'm just kidding. I mean, I don't spend as much time on the the AI hacking side, but we obviously focus on the voice security side, and the concern that you bring is exactly what we see is scale. it couldn't be done at this volume in the past. I mean, you could have an entire contact center or multiple contact centers dropped with, AI attacks simultaneously. And, it's no longer scaling up based on how many bad actors you can hire, to work for you in a call center is just resources on a cloud somewhere. So, the way I look at it is, it does necessitate, the mentality of fighting AI with AI, which, we're trying to educate our clients on today. That's been a harder battle, because with all the press around AI, the hype around AI, there's so much more fear around what it can be, what it does against you, as well as what's happening with data, as opposed to, the amount of folks that are looking at the opportunity of how we can utilize and leverage AI to protect ourselves from bad uses of AI.
Yeah, I think, and this is where I was going to challenge you. This is what I think the future is, and I think you are in the what my dad would call the catbird seat, which apparently is a good thing, because I think that the safest thing we can do, because here's the thing, I'm seeing this now in a whole new light. Your application, Milind. So when I call a call center, I want to know. Or when a call center calls me, I want to know that I'm talking to that company. And one way to do that is if I could confirm the voice of that employee, which your software does in seconds. So, because, there's a lot of stuff that we walk away from, like, hey, we're never going to contact you on the phone. That's kind of a thing that sucks, because there are times when you would like to contact them on the phone, but you don't, because you don't want to open yourself up to this. Whereas, hey, we would contact you on the phone, but know that we're going to do it through the Illuma Labs comms app or whatever. And as long as it goes green, it's us, or whatever it is. It
Right.
just feels like your mission has suddenly expanded, and it's beyond just identifying members coming in. It's the reverse of that. It's all the employees. It's protecting the passwords, the IT center. It just feels like your use case. That's why I invited you, because I just wanted to make you feel good. But it just feels like you've got tons of opportunity in this space. And, Jonathan, I know you guys experienced a little of this. You told me about it. I mean, if you had something that could tell your IT people, hey, this for sure is my employee calling to do a password reset, I think you'd be all over that, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and it's a lot better than the kind of clunky things we do today. Like, okay, we have a record of people's badge numbers. Verify your badge numbers so that I know it's you. I mean, and people are like, oh crap, I gotta find my badge. I got,
Yeah.
it's just the way we do it today is kludgy. So taking this and turning it into an internal facing security solution would be a really nice thing. That we're already doing MFA everywhere kind of stuff, and this would be a natural extension of that type of security, and it would be a lot more convenient than making people try and squint at their badge.
Yeah. I mean, mine, yeah, I've got a badge here. I'm not gonna do it, but yeah, the thing is so small, it's not
Right.
even
Yeah.
funny.
It's
And it's, to get into Gray I'm working for, and I look like a laptop farm, because often I'm given laptops to get into and help credit unions, and that's how they do it. So Milind, there's the challenge, but it sounds like you're already on it or had some idea about it. I know you well enough to know you've seen around this curve. I'm just curious as to what you guys got cooking or what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've had these, as I mentioned, these inquiries come in for these internal use cases. Unfortunately, it's sad to say that these only happen after someone suffered from an attack. And when we have a conversation with them on, and I won't name any names, but how do you authenticate your employees before you reset a password? I can't tell you how many times I've heard we ask them, "What's your badge number?" Okay. When did you start? What year? What's your manager's name? And what's your manager's name?
All stuff you can find on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, obviously, for even better access. I mean, I used to work at a large semiconductor company, and I could log in to our standard HR system, and I can look anybody up, among the 30,000 employees. It shows me their ID number, show me the reporting structure, which means I could have assumed the identity and reset a password for anybody in the organization if I was a bad actor. So what we're seeing happen is, not everybody has, IT access, but it's easy to get take over, some like a subcontractor or someone lower levels account that may not have all the credentials. Get in there, get access to the internal HR structure. Now you can answer anybody's questions, and now you can take over an account that has privileged access. And then from there, the next step is if there's an attack, then there's an immediate rush to figure out how do we fix this. Voice ID obviously seems very obvious if you're allowing password resets over the phone. But then, it's such a large leap for organizations outside of the banking space because they've not been used to, high level of authentication. But as you're rightly saying, these problems are being felt across a variety of industries these days, which you wouldn't associate traditionally as regulated or requiring a deeper level or step up levels of authentication. And I think it's one of our fastest growing use cases right now, the internal employee use case, starting with internal service desk and help desk for password resets, but then looking at it just broader.
Yeah, the executive suite. I think that's when we, it's funny as I was just thinking about something, and the term that really just I think encompasses all of this is scale. I think she hit the nail on the head with that. Like, for instance, I was thinking, how many times have we posted a picture of employees on LinkedIn or something, and they're all wearing their badges, right? And the reality is that would have been some time to do all that and harvest it all, and who's going to look through all the pictures. And so there's some just normal security through obscurity or complexity in a way of getting that. But we're at a point now where creating a bot to go find all that and do vision wouldn't be all that hard. I think that my worry is that we've leveled up and not everyone's aware, which is why I tried to use the town hall, and I invited you because I know you're very aware. Nothing I'm telling him he hasn't already heard. I've just been teeing him up. But that's where I see tremendous opportunity, and I'll say it again: the most quickest, transparent way to do is the way you have it set up, and the fact that you're open-minded and know you probably can be beat, and you're always trying to improve it. That's really the other most important aspect of your organization, from my position, because we're going to build 10-foot walls, and they're going to bring 11-foot ladders, and then we got to build them higher, and they bring bigger ladders, and the game goes on and on and on. And this time, though, what I worry about is they suddenly have built a 20-foot ladder, and building the wall that high is going to take some more time than gradually moving it up like we have been. There's just a quantum leap in that space that worries me. So I would highly encourage you to talk to Melinda and his group. They've got a lot of folks that if you're not doing this, it's going to be, it's already table stakes. You got to do something, and you got to do it quick. I just think that the elevation of fraud is going to happen, and it's going to be something that you look up and get a report one month and go, holy crap, what just happened? Implementing this stuff does take time regardless, but also just architecting it, even just talking to someone like your team to understand how to architect your telecommunications such that it can be used for these sorts of things is valuable, what you're using for help desk and whatnot. So, Melinda, where can they find you? I mean, we post it all the time, but I mean, you personally, like, where do you live so they can come talk to you and maybe give us yourself?
You can put this picture into ChatGPT and I'll tell you the exact address. I'm pretty sure that'll happen very soon.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
But Madison, thank you for posting the link. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're always happy to help. And, if you just want to have a conversation to understand what we do and how we could help, love to have that as well.
I can't wait for your password product. I think that's a big one. I think the executive suite, the password product, I think there's tremendous opportunity there. That two-way and I think it's the way of the world in the future, that everybody you talk to is going to have to be authenticated through something, and to know that you're actually talking to them. We're going to live in a world where you just cannot be sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to my special guest, and thank you to all the people that always contribute. Randy, I know you did some cool stuff with I kind of did a quick class for Randy on how to use Windsurf, and he went nuts with it. His website's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, you talked me out of using ChatGPT, and using Claude instead.
Yeah, well, Claude is a big difference. I mean,
Claude's fantastic.
Huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's it for today. I hope you join us next time and check out the podcast. And we appreciate your time. Hope you got something out of this, which is, be careful of hiring North Korean hackers, and don't send them laptops, I guess, is the answer. So, and if you do, but by the way, I do think interviews is another place, Melinda. I really do, because they were using, and there's a video that I found where they're basically just answering the questions, and the AI is just answering the questions for them, is what it is, as a voice.
Yeah.
And it was enough to fool the interviewer. And I got to think, at least at this point, that's pretty easy to catch, but it's going to get harder over time.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New house reveal next town hall. So less dogs, more guitars.
Thanks, John.
All right.
See you next
Take care,
time.
everyone.
Bye.